All right, folks, welcome.
You're at 109 right now.
I'd like to go over this one more time. Hopefully, I can illustrate and explain these things to you all. All right, so let's just get right into it. All right. This is a mural located at Crenshaw and Slauson, painted by Ink One. And this suggests the celestial connection between one Nipsey Hussle and the universe. All right, so we have the celestial body, a star, um, you know, on his forehead, and then we see a clearer image of him we saw him in human form, right? And then the Amharic writing says the marathon continues. It's a beautiful work of art. You can find this at Crenshaw Slauson at the Fat Burger that Nipsey owned. All right, so let's get into some conspiracy stuff. I'm going to present some evidence for you, some things that I just happened to notice. Okay. Here we go. Here's this photo taken in Shibuya. I serendipitously found this picture one day while watching the music video for Crenshaw and Slauson, True Story. In this picture, you can see Nipsey in the center and the number 109 in the top left corner. All right. Here is a painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat. Curiously, in this painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat, you can see what appears to be a human figure in the center and the number 109 in the bottom left. Okay. Let me give you a closer look at that number. You see the human figure there, what looks like a man, and we zoom in and we see 109. This was painted in 1982 by the artist Jean-Michel Basquiat. Let's look at the painting and the picture side by side here. I'm suggesting that perhaps the painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat is a premonition of a being who was to arrive on Earth in human form, one Hermes Askedam. Hermes' name was God Will Rise, okay? Now let's look more carefully at this work of art by Jean-Michel Basquiat that I say is a premonition. In 1982, this painting was created by Jean-Michel Basquiat. The artist Basquiat curiously wrote words that have an eerie connection to Hermes Askedam. Okay. So let's take a look at this painting more closely, shall we? At the top, Basquiat wrote Alexander the Great. What is the connection? Well, Hermes called himself the Great. His Twitter account is called The Great. You can still search for it. It still exists. Next, Alexander the Great was Greek. In Greece, there is a city named Marathon. So what is the connection? Well, Hermes' brand is named the Marathon Clothing. If you're a fan, you know this already. Let's continue. Legend has it that a marathoner ran to Athens to inform the people of their victory. What is the connection? Well, Hermes called his debut album Victory Lap. Again, if you're a fan, you know this. In the painting, Basquiat wrote liver and lungs. What is the connection? Well, Hermes died from multiple gunshots. The bullets that failed him pierced his liver and his lungs. Basquiat wrote the number 47 within this painting. And so what's the connection? Well, Hermes was shot between 10 or 11 times, and 4 plus 7 equals 11. Next, Basquiat wrote China within this painting. So what is the connection? Well, this photo was taken in Japan. And if you know, Japan and China are Asian countries, right? All right. So now I changed the image and let's look at them. This is the picture and that's the painting. Here's the picture and here's the painting. You have the same elements in the picture as well as in the painting. All right.
You're at 109 right now.
All right, folks. What I need for you to consider is how I have collected all this information to present to you now in this video. Okay. For starters, I didn't set out to and look for these things. I wasn't like, where is 109? Where is 109? Where is 109? Okay. And I didn't even have an idea what 109 even meant. The numerous times that I encountered it, aside from the fact that I imagined it was an allusion to my birthday. I mean, it actually is. You know, when I see 1009, I see 10/9 or October 9th. But outside of my birthday, there wasn't anything to tell me like, hey, you know, these were angel numbers, you know, speaking to you and what have you. It wasn't until 2019, actually, when I talked with my colleague and I told him, man, I've been seeing these numbers for probably like 12 years up until that point or more. 2007 to 2019, yes, 12 years. And he told me quite simply, why don't you go and check Google? And I thought to myself, wow, I never thought even to just go to Google to get an answer. And that's when they told me it was 109 is an angel number. But I wasn't satisfied with that description or that explanation, because 109 was just like any other number. You can search any number and Google will tell you it's an angel number. And so that didn't satisfy me. But I found greater significance in the interpretation of these numbers as put forth by the nation of gods and earths. And those are the 5%ers. And I found that for the number 9, for it to mean born, according to the 5%ers, I found that to resonate with me much more than, you know, just calling 109 angel numbers, because 9, you know, meaning born, and for 109 to be my birthday, it was like, oh, this was meant to be. This is like kind of like destiny, right? So this was the result, you know, in 2019. This was the conclusion I arrived at. Oh, I need to look into the nation of gods and earths for an explanation, and I did. Then, you know, at that point in 2019, I had these experiences where I had seen 109 in many different ways. Not, I want to be very clear, I didn't see it every single day, but I had these moments over those 12 years where I would see the numbers and they would, you know, impress me. It would be like, wow, those numbers are right there. That's curious. You know, they would capture my attention. So, anyway, but by 2019, having had the experiences that I had, and you know, I came to a certain conclusion. I was like, you know what? These numbers are related to Nipsey. It was an epiphany that I had. And I could understand everything and I could see everything very clearly as it related to Nipsey. But what I really want you to know is with these pictures, let's see, the picture of Nipsey that was taken in Japan, I found that picture after watching the video, Crenshaw and Slauson, True Story. I just happened to watch it and then I saw that image of Nipsey and I saw 109. Now, I might not have focused on that picture if I hadn't already been to Japan. You see, the picture was taken at Shibuya Crossing in Tokyo. I've been there and it's world famous. Shibuya Crossing is world famous because thousands of people cross the street at that particular intersection. I believe there are five streets that intersect at that point. Anyhow, I recognized that picture. I recognized where it was taken, and I saw 109 in the picture, and that's when it was like, whoa, I have another connection between Nipsey and 109 right here in this picture. And that was one piece of the puzzle. And then about a year, maybe a year and a half later, while I was watching a documentary about Jean Michel Basquiat, that's when I came across this painting. And when I saw this painting, I did not think of Nipsey. I didn't think of anything. I just noticed that Jean Michel had written 1009 on the painting. So that got me excited and I said, "Oh, I want to know where this painting is. I want to see the full painting." And so that led me into simply wanting to know more about the painting and wanting to see it. And I think it was a year or so later that I returned, or it wasn't a year after seeing the painting, but it was I can't explain how it happened, but it was at some point I remembered that painting and I remembered that image, and I said to myself, wait a minute, this painting by Jean-Michel Basquiat is eerily similar to the photograph that Nipsey took. Look, there's a male figure and then there's the number one. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's very close and very similar. So then once I made that connection between the photograph and the painting, that's when I began to read more into the painting, and that's when it struck me that what Jean Michel had written in the painting had a very eerie connection to what happened to Nipsey. And so it was from there that I was convinced like Jean Michel had painted Nipsey in this painting. And it was clear to me from all of these connections that slowly revealed themselves to me as I returned to the painting and I returned to the image. All of these connections, everything just came to the foreground. And let me give you an example. Jean Michel wrote liver and lungs on his painting. Now, of course, Jean Michel would invoke, or he would use the anatomy, the human anatomy. This goes back to when he was 7 or 8 years old, when he was hit by a car and he stayed in a hospital for a month or so. And his mother gave him a copy of Gray's Anatomy to look at. And he became fascinated with the human body. Thereafter, in his artwork, if not all of his artwork, he included anatomy, human anatomy. Okay, that being explained, that's fine. But why then, in this particular work of art, did he write liver and lungs? Jean Michel could have written spleen, heart, brain, kidneys, pancreas, anything. He really could have gone in another direction, and yet, because he wrote liver and lungs, he pinpointed the exact organs that failed Nipsey after Nipsey had been shot, and that's a direct connection. So that was just like bizarre, okay. And then for Jean Michel to have written 47 and 4 plus 7 equals 11, and then you've got a number on the painting that correlates with the number of perhaps shots fired. Okay, it's just bizarre. All right, it truly, truly is bizarre. the connections that are in this painting as well as in the photograph. And again, of course, the male figure does not look like Nipsey, but the fact that there is a male figure, the fact that there is the number 109, just as it is in the painting, or excuse me, in the picture, like that similarity alone, really jumps out and says, "Hey, pay attention." Pay attention to this image, and that's the point. That's the jumping off point that says, hey, these two are one and the same. And then there everything else that's been mentioned. So what then is it? I mean, the point I'm making is that this painting was a premonition of Nipsey's coming. Even the name of this painting is Part Two. It is the name of the painting is exactly All Colored Cast Part Two. All right. If you look at part one of the painting, there are two paintings. If you look at part one, there isn't any mention. There's nothing there that I can draw directly from and say this, is a premonition of any one or of any given body. But part two, this part two right here, well, this one has the strongest correlation to this picture, and so I've been able to correlate the content, the words, with one Nipsey Hussle. Now, the thing about Nipsey, and the reason why I keep talking about Nipsey, is because Nipsey's name was Ermias, and Ermias meant God will rise. And for all that Nipsey accomplished in his life, it's just magnificent, wonderful, miraculous, even. And his life and legacy is a beautiful one. And I've said it before, and I mean, I guess I'll say it now. I believe that Nipsey is the closest that we've come to Jesus, in our lifetime. Now, that correlates with the title of this of Jean-Michel's painting, Part Two, because I guess what I'm talking about is the second coming of Christ, right? You know. Now, I'm not a Bible scholar, and I don't want to get all, into a debate over this. I just want to, talk about what I noticed and what thoughts were, triggered and sparked by seeing this work of art and seeing this picture and knowing what I know, or rather what I've learned about one Ermias, but also about Ethiopia and Eritrea and the Aksumite Empire. I mean, there's so much. There's so much there. And the idea that this is a premonition of one coming, that that idea underscores the idea that Nipsey had a messianic energy or messianic spirit. I mean, after all, it is the FBI who created the COINTEL program, COINTELPRO, and their express goal was that of preventing the rise of a Messiah. Now let's remove Nipsey Hussle from the discussion, and we know that men like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, these are some examples of potential Messiah or messianic apex figures. And so, that being said, it didn't have to be Nipsey, who perhaps the FBI were going to target, but it was Malcolm X, it was Martin Luther King, it was Fred Hampton. I'm not suggesting that Nipsey was targeted by the FBI. I'm not suggesting that at all. All I'm saying is, if the FBI set out to thwart the rise of a Messiah, then I would say that Nipsey fell into the profile of a Messiah. I mean, the brother was anointed from his bloodline, which traces all the way back to the biblical Eritrea, and traces all the way back to Queen of Sheba, a biblical figure. I mean, it's all there. So to see a painting by Basquiat. Now, okay, now lastly, how did Basquiat, like who is Basquiat, and what gave him, why, okay, I guess I'm asking, why did God choose Basquiat to bring the message to the masses, so to speak? Well, Basquiat was a drug user, and I imagine, this is conjecture. I'm just trying to figure out, what it was, or I'm just trying to, come to some, conclusions here, and say, well, maybe, through the drug use, there was a trance. Maybe Basquiat entered a trance, and so a spirit was able to, what is it, take over Basquiat, incarnate. No, maybe not incarnate, but he was the spirit was able to, what is it? The spirit entered Basquiat and led him. The spirit led Basquiat to paint what he painted. So the spirit inspired him. So this is what I'm suggesting. And think about the book Flash of a Spirit, because what I'm talking about is I'm talking about things. First off, I'm talking about things that I am ignorant about. I traveled to Cuba and I learned about Santeria, and I learned about the spirits there. And I also learned about the connection of Santeria to Yoruba, voodoo or voodoo. The conclusion I drew from what I learned is that, all of our spiritualities, all of our religions, we're all connected. We're all human beings and we're all one. And so, we are all one spirit. And so and we are all God. We are a part of God consciousness. And so it's very deep. It's very heavy. I may not be doing it justice, but the part that I want to advance, what I want to show is I want to show that, you have a painting, you have a picture, you have lived experiences that, fold into one. All right. Finally, there's the picture, the painting. I mean, it's all right there, and it's all very. I imagine it's very clear. It's plain. It's plain to see. Those numbers. Who Nipsey was, his legacy. I mean, it's deep. It's very deep, and it's very compelling. Look at these images and to know that life imitated art. But in the realist sense, I mean, yeah, for art to imitate, for life to imitate art, that would mean that the art is a premonition. Okay, and this is a this is a strange moment of art, of life imitating art. This is a strange moment because it would appear that Basquiat wrote, completely random things, random ideas, then there's no rhyme or reason to it, and yet they line up so well with one Nipsey Hussle. Whew. It's like, how does that happen? So That's what I think it is. That's what I think it is. I hope I've explained more and given some insight into what I think is going on here, and and I hope you enjoyed listening to this. All right. Lastly, I have a story to tell. I have another story. So that story is coming up next. Peace and blessings. Okay. Now, if you would, I have a story related to these numbers as well as to Nipsey. And it goes something like this. The day that Nipsey was murdered, I personally learned of the news while I was in the desert of Oman. Oman is a Middle Eastern country. And within an hour or so of learning of Nipsey's demise, I drove to work. And en route to work, a car cut me off. It was actually a truck. Now, this truck that cut me off, the license plate read 1090. And so when I saw those numbers, I thought to myself, wow, those are familiar numbers to me, 10 and 9, because 1009 is an allusion to my birthday. 10, that for me is 10, and 9, well, that's the ninth day. So 10/9 is October 9th when I see 10/9. Okay? So basically, the day that Nipsey was murdered, a car cut me off and the license plate read 1090, and I saw that as a sign. Okay? So I will never forget the day that Nipsey was murdered. Sadly, I will never forget that day. It's kind of like, everyone remembers where they were when John F. Kennedy died, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, when people die, these moments resonate with us, they stick with us. Anyhow, I was in the desert, the car cut me off. I remember those numbers 10 and 9. And of course, because I had just learned of Nipsey's passing, I was sad, and 109 and Nipsey stuck in my mind. So I had 109 on my mind as well as Nipsey. Now, about 1 week after Nipsey's murder, I walked outside of my home going to work. I was headed to work once again when I looked into the sky and I saw lines in the sky. And these lines I had never seen before, and I can't explain why I saw them that day. Now, I believe it was 7 days exactly after Nipsey's murder that I saw these lines. So the number 7 stuck out in my mind. I recalled Nipsey's passing, and I recalled seeing 109, and all of these elements, these details played with me. They stuck with me, and I thought to myself, wow, I don't think I'll ever forget these three elements: 109, Nipsey, and this cross, this crucifix that I saw in the desert. Okay? And I must say, I can't explain why I saw it, why those lines were there, because if you're like me and if you're from Los Angeles, you can understand when there are lines in the sky because airplanes are flying over Los Angeles all the time. But for the city that I lived in the country of Oman, the city is called Nizwa. Well, airplanes don't fly overhead the way that they do in Los Angeles. So it was a very peculiar and extremely rare occurrence for these lines to appear in the sky. All right? So that's what happened to me. I saw those lines in the sky, a crucifix, if you will, because those lines intersected, okay? They intersected to form a cross in the sky, a crucifix. So I remember that crucifix. I remember the numbers 109, the day that I learned of Nipsey's passing. And of course, I couldn't forget Nipsey. So these were three things that stuck out in my mind. All right? Now, when I returned to Los Angeles in 2019, or maybe I hadn't, what I'm going to tell you now is that I discovered 109, a crucifix, and Nipsey right here in Los Angeles together. I don't believe it was in 2019 when I discovered this. I believe it was in 2020, maybe even 2021. I'm not sure. I forgot. Okay. I did make a video of this discovery, however, and it may be, I'll put the link. I'll put the link in here, and then you can figure it out. But what I'm saying is, what I've discovered and all of the pieces that I'm putting together, they didn't all come to me at one time. It's been over time that these things have revealed themselves to me. All right. So, what am I talking about? Well, right on Crenshaw Boulevard, at the intersection of Crenshaw and 60th, where at the southwest corner where the Crete Academy is located, you can find a mural of Nipsey. All right, so there's the Nipsey. There's the Nipsey aspect, right? Okay. Now the Crete Academy, it's a parochial school, so there's religion involved. So you can find a crucifix right there. It's visible from Crenshaw. There's a cross right there next to, next to the mural. You can see it clearly from Crenshaw. And then there's 109. Just next to the cross, the crucifix there at Crete Academy, there is an apartment building. And the apartment building address is 6109. All right, y'all. How did that happen? I was in the desert, and the day that Nipsey was murdered, I saw 109, and I remembered Nipsey. And then 7 days later, I saw a crucifix in the sky that I cannot explain how or why that crucifix was there or that it appeared. And then when I returned home to Los Angeles, I found those three elements, those three details were right there in very close proximity. I didn't even have to look for it. It was right before my face. It's right there for you all to see as well. Go to 60th and Crenshaw, and you can see the mural of Nipsey Hussle, the crucifix, and the numbers 1, 0, and 9. Strange but true, y'all. Peace and blessings. I'm out.